colleagues at AHRC have been able to secure funding for a second round of this programme. And thank you ever so much for signing up to join today's town hall meeting. And the aims of our meeting today are just to ensure that everybody has as much information as possible about the scheme, about the processes, about the key stakeholders involved, and the ways in which you might look to make an application. We have a number of colleagues joining us today. I will just run through the list now, and then you will be hearing from them directly very shortly indeed. From the AHRC, our colleague Andrea Bond, who's Senior Investment Manager for Skills, will be talking about the scheme from an AHRC perspective. Myself and Eloise Rowley, who's our phenomenal project coordinator here at the V&A, we will be talking about the role that the Victoria and Albert Museum has played over the last couple of years for the first iteration of this scheme as the cohort training and development team. And then we're also absolutely thrilled that Sophie Nicolov, sorry, Sophie, I've absolutely butchered your surname there. One of our extraordinary fellows in the current scheme based at Natural History Museum has joined us just to give a bit of a fellow's eye view of what the scheme is like and perhaps any hints and tips for developing project ideas with your potential partner organisations. This is a bumper session in terms of independent research organisation representatives. So you really need to hold on to your hats because we've got a phenomenal range of organisations represented today, each of whom will be sharing insights as to their key areas of research interest. Each of our organisations has proposed four areas of interest, and our colleagues will be talking through them in turn. We have our colleagues from the National Museum of Wales, Gemma Brown, Research Manager; from the National Museums of Scotland, Andrea Kopp, who's Research and Academic Liaison Manager; from the British Film Institute, Barry Dixon, the Head of the Research Department; from Historic Royal Palaces, Catherine Speight, who is Research Lead there; from the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh, thrilled to see Lorna Mitchell, who's Head of Library and Archives there; from the Royal Armouries, we welcome Mark Bennett, Research Manager; from the Science Museum Group, we welcome Vicki Blood, who's Research Grants Manager; and finally from the National Trust, welcoming Sophie Potter, National Research Grants Manager for Research. So you have a real smorgasbord of talent on display here today. So and really the aim of today's town hall is to ensure that as many that we talk you through the scheme, that our colleagues from IROs are able to share their particular areas of interest. And it is worth noting that there are a wider range of IROs that are also participating in this scheme. And should you wish to hear from them, we have one more town hall on the 6th of October, and we have already hosted two. And the recordings are either already available on the AHRC website or will be available very shortly indeed. So just to give you a sense of what we're going to be doing, this is a long session. We've got an hour and 45 minutes just because there are a significant number of speakers to include. We will make sure that there is a screen break around midway through the programme. So the first half of the session through to about midday will be welcoming our colleagues from AHRC to talk about the opportunity. Then I will talk a little bit more about the role of the cohort coordination and development team, and then we will have short presentations from our IRO colleagues on their specific research priorities. And we'll also, those will be interspersed by a presentation from our current early career fellow, Sophie. We will ensure that there is time at the end for any questions, any Q&A, but please do also feel free to use the chat as we go through the session, and we will try and pick up any questions in the chat and answer them as the meeting progresses. Anything we can't do immediately, we'll take offline and ensure that you get a response in a timely manner, because we are all acutely conscious of the timelines running into Christmas to conclude the EOI part of this work. Finally, a couple of little bits of housekeeping. Just a reminder that the town hall is being recorded please do remain on mute, just so for ease of hearing for everybody else. And all of the presentations will be made available on the funding call page on the Funding Finder website. We would also really encourage you to fill in a voluntary equality, diversity and inclusion monitoring form, which we will circulate to all attendees after this town hall. For the first iteration of this fellowship, we got really phenomenal responses to these EDI monitoring forms that have been really, really helpful in terms of understanding the kind of constituency of individuals that are applying to this scheme. And and just to reassure you, all information is anonymized, and we will only be using it to conduct evaluation throughout the process to ensure that our scheme is as inclusive as possible. So that's it in terms of the housekeeping and the intros from me. I'm going to stop sharing now and pass over to Andrea from the AHRC. Andrea, over to you.
Thanks, Ollie. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen and start my presentation. So can I just check that everybody can see that?
Yep, all good.
Okay, so as Ollie said, I'm a senior investment manager working within the AHRC skills team, and I'm overseeing the round 2 of the early career researchers in cultural and heritage organisations. I also oversee the Collaborative Landscape Awards and the Collaborative Doctoral Partnerships. I'll try to keep my presentation brief today, but there is quite a lot of information to share. So we are excited to launch the second round of our early career fellowships and cultural and heritage institutions. And the scheme is designed to support early career researchers working within the UK's vibrant cultural and heritage sectors, building on the success of the pilot round. It offers individual fellowships hosted by independent research organisations, enabling talented researchers to deepen their expertise and contribute to the sector's knowledge base. It also includes a cohort-based programme of networking events and career development activities, fostering collaboration, peer support and long-term professional growth. So our aim is to strengthen research capacity within IROs and to support career progression for early career researchers, and then foster a vibrant, connected community of cultural and heritage research professionals. For us, this scheme reflects our commitment to nurturing talent, promoting innovation and ensuring long-term sustainability of research in the cultural and heritage sectors. So objectives for the scheme for the fellows. The scheme is first and foremost people-focused, which is why we have chosen the image of seedlings growing. It symbolises growth, care and potential. And at its heart, the fellowship is about nurturing early career postdoctoral researchers, giving them the space, support and the opportunity to develop professionally within the UK's rich cultural and heritage landscape. The key objectives for the fellows are twofold: to create meaningful opportunities for early career postdoctoral researchers to build, deepen or broaden their experience, and then to develop their skills and future research careers in ways that align with the work, collections and practices of their host organisations. Through this, we aim to support not just individual career progressions, but also the wider research capacity and sustainability of the sector. Moving on to the objectives for the host. So as you can see on the slide, for hosts themselves, we hope that the fellowships will deliver high quality and impactful research while enhancing the host capacity in areas which are closely aligned with their research strategy and will lead to practical benefits and outcomes. And then the objectives for the scheme for the wider sector, we hope the fellowships will bring meaningful benefits to the wider cultural and heritage sector, firstly by addressing a well-recognised need for more dedicated support at the early stages of research careers, something AHRC is committed to supporting. Secondly, by promoting equality, diversity and inclusion principles and helping to build and diversify the sector's research capabilities. And then finally, by supporting broader societal engagement, strengthening the cultural and heritage sector's contribution to cultural society and the economy, to culture, society and the economy. So the eligibility requirements for fellows, so moving on to the practical side. So fellows need to be based in the UK or eligible to work here, for example, through a visa. Show a clear commitment to working with the cultural and heritage sector. This will be important when hosts consider supporting your application. Either already be employed or have confirmed offer of employment from the host for the duration of the fellowship. This part is particularly relevant to the full proposal stage. And then be of postdoctoral standing. So I'll explain what that means on the next slide. And then finally, each applicant must address one predefined research area from a host IRO and submit one expression of interest as specified in the funding opportunity. So just to note, the fellowships could use methodologies, theories, approaches and tools from any discipline or a combination of disciplines if it's an interdisciplinary project, as long as the scope of the project and the overall approach are within the AHRC's remit. So details of our remit can be found within our research funding guide, specifically between pages 89 to 95. And then if you or the host have any doubts whether your project includes a sufficient element of arts and humanities to be funded by AHRC, please submit a pre-application remit query through our website. I think there are links to that on the slide. So in terms of postdoctoral criteria, to qualify as being of postdoctoral standing, candidates must meet one of these criteria at the time of application. So self-identify as an early career researcher working in the arts and humanities research space, in accordance with the AHRC's guidance on training and developing early careers in the arts and humanities. There's a link to that document on the slide. And then importantly, AHRC defines ESRC status based on funding history, not job title or years since PhD. Alternatively, you may qualify if you have up to 6 years of postdoctoral research experience or up to 6 years in roles where research was a major component. And then just a quick note on eligibility for those finishing their PhDs. If a doctoral candidate has passed their viva before the expression of interest application deadline and only needs to make minor corrections, they are eligible to apply. However, if the corrections are substantial and it requires reassessment, then they won't meet the eligibility criteria, I'm afraid. And then also, when considering eligibility timelines, please note that any career breaks, for example, due to family, care, health reasons or COVID-19 pandemic, such as homeschooling or furlough, can be excluded from that calculation. So the eligibility requirements for the host. So they need to be an independent research organisation that are eligible to receive UKRI and AHRC funding, conduct research within the AHRC that is in areas suitable for humanities research, and then each host must provide a supportive research environment for the fellow. So just to unpack that a little bit, it needs to include things such as line management, a strong commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion, access to mentoring, relevant training and facilities, and then overall support for the fellow's career development. A host must also commit to employing the fellow for the full duration of the award. And then finally, we strongly encourage hosts to follow the principles of the Concordat to support the career development of researchers, to ensure fellows are well supported throughout their journey. We also encourage partnerships that enhance the fellowship's experience through skills training and research collaboration, and have therefore provided the option for host, co-host, a fellow provided one host on the employment and management. So this allows flexibility arrangements that can benefit the fellow and the institutions involved. Applications involving multiple host organisations are welcome. If this applies, one must lead on the employment and managing the award. The application must clearly specify the activities at each host, and then it should explain how the arrangement benefits both the host and the fellow's career development. And then all hosts involved must be listed in the application. Additionally, host organisations may also choose to partner with other UK cultural and heritage organisations, universities or international organisations. So these partners do not need to have IRO status, and the partnerships are optional. So just to give you an example, Non-IROs may wish to consider collaborating with an IRO host to offer placement opportunities. So this type of activity would enable the fellow to spend part of the fellowship with the organisation, for example, to work on specific collections. And so I think it's just important to note that if there are costs incurred through placements, this can be included as part of your funding application. And then if a partnership is included, a letter of support must be submitted, and this should outline the purpose, commitment, and the added value of the collaboration. Fellowships will include a dedicated training and development programme designed specifically for cohorts of fellows participating within the scheme, and Ollie is going to provide you with additional information to what I'm just going to cover now. So it builds on the successful model delivered during the pilot phase by the cohort coordination and development team at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And the programme will include things such as sector-specific skills training, panels discussions, networking activities to foster peer learning and cohort identity. So it is designed to support career development, inclusive participation and engagement both within and beyond the cohort. And then most of the activities will be delivered online with some in-person events, including a residential. So fellows are expected to engage with this programme with activities averaging at 0.5 days per week. You can see further details on the current programme as they are available on the V&A's Early Career Research Fellowship page. So I think the really key important bit there is that we do expect fellows to engage with these activities. So I'll run through the dates and then explain exactly how to apply on one of the next slides. The fellowships can last between 1 and 2 years, longer if they're part-time. The expression of interest stage is currently open and due to close on the 10th of December. So we hope that this is a generous amount of time for potential fellows to discuss their ideas with potential hosts prior to submitting an expression of interest. The V&A will provide you with further details on the requirements and the timings of the expression of interest stage, as they will be administering that. The timeline for the full proposal stage will be published when the funding opportunity timeline has been finalised, but this is expected to be early 2026. Following the full proposal stage, we expect all fellowships to begin on the 1st of January 2027, unless exceptional circumstances apply, for example, on EDI grounds. So we strongly encourage applications from individuals who are underrepresented in the cultural and heritage research sector. So this includes ethnic minorities and disabled people, though that is not an exhaustive list. And then applicants may choose to disclose personal characteristics, however, disclosure is entirely optional. And then further details on how equality, diversity and inclusion are being considered in the expression of interest phase can be found in the Equality Impact Assessment published on the UKRI Funding Finder. And then in terms of how to apply, firstly, each candidate is advised to read the Funding Finder text in detail to check eligibility and ensure they have a clear understanding of the requirements. Secondly, we have a list of the areas of interest provided by participating IROs. So it's really important that you read the document and consider which of those areas are resonating with you and your background, and then approach any relevant IRO to discuss this further. To help with this, we've also provided a list of relevant contacts for each IRO on the funding opportunity page. So you can approach multiple IROs to discuss potential fellowships, but you can only submit one expression of interest form to the scheme. You will find all of the additional documents referenced in this presentation under the additional information section on the Funding Finder opportunity page. So that is everything from me. And I look forward to receiving your questions.
Brilliant, Andrea. Thank you so much. There are a few questions that have come in the chat already, which I think are being dealt with by Ord and others. So thanks for that. And I think what we'll do is we'll hold all questions till the end of the session. So please do. If you have further questions, do type them in the chat, but otherwise we will do a sort of verbal Q&A at the end of the session. So it's now my opportunity to share with you some further details of the cohort coordination and development team's work. So I'll just fire up the slides again. So hopefully you can all see that. So here we go. The team it's currently a team based at the V&A, and there are three of us: Joanna Norman, who is director of the V&A Research Institute, National Art Library and Archives; myself as head of academic partnerships; and Eloise Rowley, who's also on the call with us today as project coordinator. And between the three of us, we work to support three mutually reinforcing work streams. The first of which is supporting the development of fellowship proposals through the expression of interest phase. So that includes running the town hall events this side of Christmas, triaging any queries that individuals may have around eligibility, fit, or the process itself. And then we will be pivoting, fingers crossed, from early 2027 to designing and delivering a cohort training and development program. What that means in practice is thinking, much as Andrea mentioned in her presentation, around the sort of seedlings growing into mighty oaks. Our role as the cohort training and development team is to ensure that we are producing and co-creating with our fellowship community a really robust but also sort of stretching professional development program that will equip you with the skills, knowledge and capability to be successful in whichever onward trajectory you choose out at the end of the fellowship program. So we're focusing in particular on those kinds of skills that are ever more essential for both research but also other forms of employment, both within the cultural sector, and we're also of course aware that others go into the commercial sector as well. We also will be monitoring the scheme through an evaluation consultant and ensuring that we report accurately on the progress of the scheme and share that with our colleagues at the AHRC. To go into a little bit of greater detail about the training and development program, our specific focus is on research within the cultural and heritage sector, but understanding that in order to be a successful researcher within this fast-paced, fast-moving environment that's trying to do a million things all at the same time, all at once, it's important to think about the ways in which you might articulate the impact and relevance and resonance of your research within our organizations. And the training and development program is designed to do just that, and to add to the expert insight that would be provided by your host organizations. It's really important at this moment, at the beginning of the scheme, to stress the time commitment involved. It is approximately half a day a week, and rather than seeing it as a distraction from any research activity that you might be undertaking, please do consider it as an essential part of this program. Indeed, the AHRC has ring-fenced budget to enable us to deliver these opportunities. We think that this is a really vital part of the scheme. Most of the sessions take place online, and we are deeply mindful of the variety of life circumstances that our fellows may find themselves in, whether they are undertaking the fellowship part-time, whether they have caring responsibilities, or whether they may need to travel long distances. So we are acutely conscious of scheduling events at a time that works for our fellowship community. That said, we also believe in the importance of in-person activities, and so there will be key milestone events throughout the fellowship that we will host in person, with at least one residential trip. So that will be a sort of couple of days away, working with your peer group to further develop your skills and knowledge. We will also be coordinating a mentoring program and really encourage the kind of peer-to-peer learning that comes from being part of a cohort of really talented individuals. Just to give you a couple of examples of what our training and development offer might look like, our pilot program, which we have been running for the last 2 years, has included seminars focused on cultural and heritage sector issues, themes, challenges, and opportunities. We've had workshops on navigating complex institutions and working with communities and other stakeholders. And we've also had really practical sessions on budget and project management, career pathways, funding opportunities, writing CVs, and grant applications. We will also embedded within the delivery of the cohort training and development program, we include a mentoring scheme. So that is to ensure that outside of the line management relationship you will have within your host independent research organization, that there is another person involved in helping you develop those skills or areas of expertise that you are keen to do. We also run a small responsive grant scheme throughout the lifespan of the fellowship, and that's really in response to the fact that there might be emerging research, knowledge exchange, collaboration opportunities that only become apparent after you've been embedded in your host organization for a period of months or indeed years. And we are really keen to ensure that the fellowship program can be responsive to those emergent and exciting research opportunities. Finally, as mentioned earlier, we really do stress the benefits of peer-to-peer learning throughout the cohorts. Our current cohort have a really diverse range of research interests and experiences, but are all connected by their deep desire and their deep passion to articulate the benefit of research and to articulate the benefit of embedded researchers within cultural and heritage organizations. You can find out more about our kind of current program on the V&A website. So I do just sort of type into Google, ECR fellowships in cultural and heritage organizations, V&A, and you will find your way to our website, our webpage, where there's a whole range of information and reports and blog posts that explore some of the activity that we've undertaken over the past couple of years that will hopefully give you a flavour of how exciting it is to be part of this cohort. Just in terms of developing your proposal, a reminder that the UK Funding Finder website has all of the information about the opportunity. So we really advise you to take your time in reading all of the information there. We appreciate that there's lots of it, but it is all vital in shaping the parameters and eligibility and explaining the ways in which you make an application. It's important also to think about which independent research organisation might be best fit, might be a best fit for your areas of specialism and your areas of interest. We encourage you to read about the priority areas of interest that each organisation has identified, and then to enable you to start a conversation with that potential host organisation. We have a spreadsheet with key contact names on it. Should you wish to work with the V&A, do get in touch with me and I will be triaging those requests to ensure that you speak to the relevant specialist within our organisation. And those names and the people that you'll be hearing from later today, we are all doing similar roles within our organisation. So our aim is to be that bridge between your interest and the internal dynamics and expertise of the potential host organisations. It's just worth mentioning that one of the reasons why the Independent Research Organisation Consortium, or IROC, have been so keen to support these fellowships is that across 4 key areas they are really pushing forward our prominence. Firstly, in researching underexplored collections and places. Secondly, in contextualising these collections in relation to contemporary themes of national and global relevance. We're also especially interested in the ways in which creative technology can be applied to both the sort of practice and performance within our organisations. And finally, also the role that heritage science might play as an enabler too. We also have an ongoing shared interest in climate change, biodiversity loss, sustainability, and resilience, and also in a future-facing way, thinking about the kind of pressing changes that are coming towards the sector, not least the role of generative AI. As we said, there's a greater level of detail included in the individual institutions' priority lists that are available on the funding finding website. And it's worth saying that only projects that directly relate to these 4 priority areas per host organisation will be taken forward. We've stated that these are the areas that we are interested in, and we require projects to fit within those criteria. Should you wish to contact a potential host, as I say, we have the complete list here, and we really urge you to get in touch as soon as possible. Any of you that have worked in a cultural organisation will know that trying to find time in anyone's diary is a complete nightmare. So the longer lead-in time you give us in order to ensure that we can enable the conversation with the correct person in our organisations, the better. So please don't delay in writing to those organisations, even if it is just the kernel of an idea. We expect that between now and the submission of an expression of interest, that you will have had the opportunity to discuss that idea with a potential host and understand how it might fit with their priorities. Just to say, we have one further town hall meeting scheduled, which is for next Monday, where we'll be hearing from colleagues from English Heritage, the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, the British Library, the British Museum, and the National Archives. And you'll be able to find all the presentations and recordings from previous town halls on the funding finder page. And we will circulate the slides as well. So just as a reminder of the timeline, so the stage we are at now is that you should, we really strongly encourage you to reach out to potential IRO hosts as soon as possible, and we will make sure that you are connected to those with relevant specialist expertise within our organisations that might be able to help you shape your projects further. You are aiming to do this before the 10th of December, so that you are able to submit your expression of interest by 4 p.m. Not 5 p.m, it's 4 p.m. We want them in by 4 p.m. on the 10th of December. So that's it in terms of the role of the cohort coordination and development team. We are now going to move on to hearing from our colleagues from independent research organisations. And Eloise, I have momentarily forgotten who our first speaker is, so might you be able to tee them up?
It's Gemma Brown, Museum Wales.
Gemma, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll just share screen. Is that coming up for everybody?
All good.
It is good, thank you. Hi everyone, lovely to see so many here today. So I'm research manager at Gemma Cymru, Museum Wales. So I'm just going to give a bit of a flavour into sort of areas that we're interested in. And as our 4 areas primarily cover an approach or style of research or working, I thought it would be useful at first to give a bit of an overview of us as an organisation, which you could then come and apply a potential research approach to. So we're a really large organisation. We've got 8 sites that spread across Wales. There's 7 museum sites covering a range of different types of collections, as well as different forms of display, including an open air museum, as well as a working industrial mine. And then we've also got a National Collection Centre just outside of Cardiff. So within these sites and across these sites, we have a range of collections. We have natural sciences, art, industry and transport, social and cultural history, archaeology, as well as our library and archives spread both in National Museum Cardiff as well as across each of the sites in the discipline areas. And these all primarily relate to the history of Wales, but increasingly more so thinking about Wales and its relationship with the world. The research that we're primarily interested in is shaped by our current research strategy until 2027. So I really invite anyone interested working with us in reading that and giving some attention to the detail in it. But there's two kind of key strands that are particularly important for early career research fellows interested in working with us. The first is that, we're not limited to the types of research that we support across our collections, and with the emphasis on interdisciplinary working that I'll later touch upon, we would, as part of this scheme, support research within our natural sciences, social sciences, arts and humanities related collections. But then crucially, the second point is that our research strategy really does pin on ensuring that everyone in Wales can shape and participate in the cultural life of our nation. So that's very much involving our communities in the research process, as well as kind of in the sharing of our research findings and the way we display and interpret our collections. So what are our 4 areas? So our 4 kind of priority areas for this scheme. The first one is community action research, especially with communities in Wales that are underrepresented in our collections, to share new stories as well as reinterpret stories we currently tell. And so the important point here is it's really researching with communities to approach our collections and the stories we tell, not pre-identifying any particular area. Then the second thing that we're particularly really interested in is improving the inclusivity and accessibility of our services and collections. Again, particularly where the research is co-designed by communities of relevance to ensure that the research is engaging with identified needs of our communities. This can take a range of forms. We're not limited on it, but it could include things like access beyond our sites and trying to mitigate challenges with travelling to our locations, as well as considering new ways of interacting with our collections or sharing our collections with others. So how we might improve accessibility beyond site, the way we engage with the collections, the way we use them, the way we research them and display them. Then the third strand is interdisciplinary approaches. And this is one of the most kind of growing areas of research work within our organisation. And so we're really keen to use that approach and or involve our communities to welcome projects across our archaeology, art, natural science and social history collections. So we really invite you as early career research fellows to think very creatively about how you can work across our collections or bring a new approach because you're working in a different field to an area of our collection, so that we can use that research to better understand, better engage, as well as better involve our communities in new ways in the research process. So just give a bit of a flavour, some of the research that we're currently supporting with our natural science collections is exploring how cultural heritage can address and engage with climate change and biodiversity loss through visual art and performance. So very much within AHRC's remit and very much exploring new ways in which we can engage our communities with these areas of our collection. And then the final point is identifying opportunities for research that can support our visitor wellbeing and social prescribing. And we particularly welcome proposals that identify potential collaborators or take a community-led approach in this area. As a bit of an example of work that we already support, we have an existing programme of dementia support that supports wellbeing for people living with dementia through engagement with us. And we're particularly interested in exploring other ways and other communities in which we maybe could work with. So what new tools or approaches can we employ at our sites or with engagement to our collection, but also thinking maybe about how kind of ways we can better fit within existing healthcare programmes and settings and evaluate our ability to do that. Another strand in this area is perhaps also thinking about how we might better connect our communities we serve to the local natural environment. So an example of us doing that in the past is in COVID, we launched an Upon Your Doorstep initiative with natural sciences to encourage people to get outdoors. But yeah, there's lots of room and scope. And I think linked to what Andrea was saying at the beginning about encouraging partnerships with non-IROs and across Wales, that's something that we do currently really encourage and support within our research. And we have very good relationships with our non-IRO organisations within Wales that we would encourage to be involved in these types of projects, as well as outside of Wales. Because the slides will be shared afterwards, it's just at the end a quick point of how to contact myself, and I will field out inquiries to any colleagues of relevance to make sure that you're put in touch with those with the right expertise to help you develop your research idea. And then I've also included just a few quick links for areas that you might want to refer to try and develop the project within line with our needs. Thank you. I hope I'm within time. I had 5
Gemma,
minutes.
that was amazing. A model of concision and incision. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Really great stuff. From one national museum group to another, we head north to our Scottish friends. Andrea, over to you.
Hello. I think that Gemma has just outlined probably all very similar things that I'm about to outline too. So hopefully this can be a brief. Hopefully you can see my slides. Just so similar to Gemma, I'm Andrea. I'm the research manager here at National Museum Scotland. It's worth pointing out that National Museum Scotland has doesn't have 8 sites, it has 5 sites across Scotland. National Museums of Scotland and National War Museum situated in Edinburgh, the National Museums Collection Centre where most of our collections are held in North Edinburgh, National Museum of Flight in East Lothian, and our National Museum of Rural Life, which is out at East Kilbride. We have 4 areas of interest that we are interested in receiving proposals from or expressions of interest from. These are our Scotland's material heritage. I'll explain each of these in more detail. They're also available on the AHRC website. So we have Scotland's material heritage, biodiversity and climate culture, colonial histories and legacies, and museum practice. It's worth also mentioning that we have around 2 million visitors annually to our sites. We have 12 million objects and specimens, and around 859,000 of these are available and searchable online. So one of the areas that we're accepting expressions of interest for is in Scotland's material heritage. This is our opportunity to explore material heritage of Scotland's creativity, lives and experiences from prehistory to the contemporary. Our collection is encyclopedic, and therefore the range of options that you have in those expression interests are wide and they are varied. The images contained on the slide show just some of those areas that we are interested in, from archaeology to science and technology to fashion and design and everything in between. Our second area of interest that we expect is in biodiversity and climate change. Our multidisciplinary collections are over 300 years old, and our aim is to understand how we might engage and address with global environmental emergencies, biodiversity loss, and anthropogenic change, climate change. As is the case with National Museum Wales, we are also interested in a multitude of ways this can be explored. Our third area of interest is in colonial histories and legacies. Much of our collection stems from the 18th century and beyond, and we are keen to explore these complex, dynamic, and underrepresented stories to identify and challenge and engage with distinctive Scottish imperial and colonial histories. And finally, our final area of interest is in museum practice. Again, looking at all of our areas from digital engagement to visitor studies to, and in particular, our ambition to advance heritage science. And finally, these are our contact details available on the AHRC website, and we welcome any and all expressions of interest in these areas.
I'm not sure if we've lost Ollie or not. Thank you, Andrea. That was great. And we're moving next on to Barry Dixon at the BFI.
Thank you very much, Eloise. Let me just get myself going here. Where no expense was spared in this presentation, Andrea has really put me to shame with her fab slides. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, so very quickly, BFI, we're many things: a cultural charity, national lottery distributor. We fund a lot of new and upcoming filmmakers. And we are also the home of the BFI National Film and TV Archive. We're the lead organisation for film and the moving image. So we have a range of missions which you can read about there. The focus of our areas, I think, in terms of this scheme is really as the host of the National Film and TV Archive, which is the world's largest film and television and moving image archive in the world. There we go. So what are our priority areas? So the first is our screen crafts. This used to be called our special collections at the BFI, but it's everything that is not moving image as it relates to film and the moving image. So that can be things like film posters, film ephemera, like scripts, costumes, everything that kind of goes into the life cycle of film, but is not itself the film. We're very interested in seeing the methodologies, the creative processes, and indeed creative acts that go into making the sort of life cycle of film. Then second area, open and equitable practices. This is really ways to surface the unseen faces, the unheard voices within our collections. That is of huge and growing importance for us as a national collection in terms of this more applied historiography, I guess, in terms of what do we do, what can we do to unearth these voices that were marginalized, ignored, or in some cases replaced. So that's hugely important to us. As is engaging new audiences, we're shifting into a third era of moving image history with online and born digital content, and are always keen to employ new methodologies, new ways of linking up our public programmings and wider work around community engagement with our collections. So anything that, as I said, can, I guess, interconnect or surface new ways to link these areas of our endeavour would be hugely welcome. As would anything that looks into the history of the BFI itself, the ways in which our collections have grown. We have, I guess, a unique challenge at the BFI in that although we are a national collection, there's no statutory deposit, which means we, unlike the British Library, for instance, where everything that's published has to go there, we don't have the same I guess government mandate, which means our histories of collecting has been I guess quite sporadic over the last century or so, and so ways of you know, if we know better, we can do better type of things would be hugely important for us. Things like provenance research. The second unique element of the BFI National Archive is we don't actually hold the rights automatically to a lot of the things we collect, and so that historiography of how some of the things we have came to be with us is hugely important to us. And yeah, I think that's basically it, Eloise. I've gone as quickly as I possibly could, just because I think time might be an issue going forward.
That was great. Thank you so much, Barry. We're going to move on swiftly to Catherine at Historic Royal Palaces.
Hi there. Can you see my slide?
Yeah. Do you want to make it full screen?
Yeah, I just oh, sorry. You see that?
Not yet. Yes, that looks great. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, hi everyone. I'm Catherine Speight. I'm research lead at Historic Royal Palaces. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our sites, we're an independent charity. We're responsible for 6 major heritage sites: Tower of London, Hampton Court Palace, Kensington Palace, the Banqueting House, Kew Palace, and Hillsborough Castle and Gardens in Northern Ireland.
Though owned by the Crown, these sites have been managed by Historic Royal Palaces since 1998 without government funding and rely instead on visitor income, philanthropy and membership. Our mission is to enable the public to explore and enjoy history where it happened. And it combines work in conservation with interpretation, presenting the palaces as arenas of monarchy, politics, ceremony and daily life. We've got a broad set of collections that encompass the crown jewels, fine and decorative arts, court dress and uniforms, archives and historic gardens. We also have the incredible Arts Council England designated Royal Ceremonial Dress Collection too. And as a research-led institution, we deliver exhibitions, education and community programmes, also addressing challenges of conservation, climate change and financial sustainability, which exemplifies some of the kind of modern role that heritage bodies like ours undertake in preserving these significant sites. So moving on to the ECR fellowship offer. We are very excited about this and interested to develop projects that explore 4 areas. We particularly welcome proposals that connect projects to our strategic priorities and address the key themes across our sites that reflect both the depth of our collections and the breadth of our mission. So first of all, global histories of places and people. This particular area, we would invite researchers to consider the relationship between the Tower of London and the kind of local and global communities that connect with the Tower, any aspect of the history or materiality of the Royal Ceremonial Dress Collection, tracing how clothing and ceremony reflect cultural exchange, diplomacy and global influences, and early Tudor exploration and international connections at Hampton Court Palace. So possibly exploring, investigating the networks of exploration, diplomacies and cultural exchange that shaped early modern Britain. Second priority area for us is health and well-being. Again, that should have specified the time period from 1066 to the present. Health, well-being and care have long been central to the life of the royal household and their surrounding communities, and we're interested in research that explores both historical perspectives of this and contemporary resonance, and areas may include medical history and treatment within the royal household, uncovering the health practices and medical innovations of the past, exploring childbirth, disability and welfare, and how these were shaped by royal practice and broader societal change, and also contemporary approaches such as social prescribing and sensory engagement in heritage sites is something we're particularly interested in, and how heritage can contribute to well-being today. We're also interested in exploring the untold stories of the court and the royal household, again 1066 to the present in terms of the time range. We're interested in exploring and revealing stories that have previously been overlooked or marginalised, in providing us with understanding of a fuller picture of court life and the histories of its people. This may include history relating to the grace and favour residents at Hampton Court Palace, women's history and representation at Hillsborough Castle, researching the roles, contributions and agency of women within royal contexts, the private royal spaces and lesser known ceremonial practices, shedding light on the rituals and practices that remain hidden from public view, and then perhaps some of the kind of darker histories such as torture and imprisonment at the Tower of London, addressing the complexities of power, punishment and memory. And then finally, heritage management and public engagement. This is something we're particularly interested in across all sites, in terms of understanding how heritage is preserved, interpreted and experienced, and this is central to our mission. Research in this area could include methods for measuring the impact of research and engagement, developing frameworks for evaluating the public and scholarly significance of heritage work. It could include community-based research methodologies, exploring participatory approaches that bring together new perspectives in heritage interpretation, Also exploring visitor experiences and interpretive strategies, examining how audiences engage with history and how interpretation can be enriched. And finally, looking at family learning and accessibility and investigating strategies that help make heritage accessible to all, including children, families and underrepresented groups. We also have a copy of our research proposal, our research strategy, which identifies the following themes. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me, I'd be very happy to provide access to that. And my details are here.
Brilliant. Catherine, thank you so much, and really nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
As I'm sure many of you are gathering on the call, it's a small community of us all research managers at IROs. So I think just to where that also works in prospective fellows' advantage is we all know each other and what our organisations are interested in. So we can also help do a bit of that navigation across and between different potential host IROs. I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute comfort break now in the schedule, and that we return at 12:35, where Sophie will be able to give us an insight, the fellow's eye view of what this scheme is like. So look forward to seeing you all back in 5 minutes. Take a break from the screen, take a stretch, and look forward to seeing you very shortly. Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope those 5 minutes were deeply restorative, and that you are now ready for the following the second half of, or maybe even the third of today's session. To kick us off, I'm really thrilled that Sophie is here. I'm hoping. Are you there, Sophie?
Can you hear me?
You're there. Hooray. Brilliant. Great. I'll just hand over to you, let you introduce yourself, the scheme, and just say thank you ever so much for doing this for us. We're deeply appreciative.
Thanks for inviting me. It's quite cool to be able to talk about the project in the context of a new round being funded, because yeah, it's been a really amazing nearly 2 years for me. Can you see my slides?
Yep, you're all good.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I'm Sophie Nicolov, and I'm the fellow based at the Natural History Museum, and I'm based in the mammal section, where I'm leading a project working on the Cetacea collection, so that's whales, dolphins and porpoises, and I'm working in close collaboration with the principal curator, Richard Sabin, who is a marine mammal expert. I'm an environmental historian, and my project looks at the role of British Empire and whaling in shaping the collection of cetacean specimens from the Southern Hemisphere since the mid-19th century through to the present day. And we're also partnered with the National Oceanographic Library at the University of Southampton, where I've been doing significant archival research because of its links to our collection. So something that's really important was the fact that I developed the project with very close input from the curator, Richard. This was to make sure that it could be specimen-led, that it was grounded in interdisciplinary collaboration and also interdisciplinary expertise, and was also kind of practical, it thought a lot about what was actually possible in the collection and the institution. I've been completely embedded full-time in the collection and the mammal team, which has been really incredible, and it's led to an in-depth understanding of natural history curation and collections management, which I simply didn't have before, and I've had some really great kind of practical hands-on experience with Richard. It's by being embedded like this, it's also meant that emerging research has been actively feeding into the curator's knowledge throughout the entire project, as opposed to kind of just coming all in at the end. And we found ways for it to contribute to the ongoing development of the Cetacea collection and the reinterpretation of specimens, which includes this blue whale these blue whale vertebrae here, which I don't have time to talk about, but you know, I think that kind of sense of, you know, that close relationship with the curator has been really one of the most exciting bits. And it's also shown me how many diverse opportunities arise throughout the year within natural history collections. You know, really fascinating, new, sometimes slightly strange things that crop up, and, you know, the kind of opportunities to actually get involved in them. So meeting international scientific researchers who use the collection, you know, lots of different artists that use the collection, being able to kind of develop new connections and collaborations with some of these people. External requests for podcast interviews, visits to other museum collections, specimen acquisitions, you know, so much more. And having a kind of supportive mentor like Richard has, you know, he's really supported me getting involved in those kinds of things. But my project also falls under the collections and culture research theme at the museum, which is led by Dr. Isabel Davis, and she's been a secondary mentor for me. This research theme focuses on arts and humanities perspectives, and it actually involves colleagues across the museum, not just humanities researchers. So curators, exhibitions, scientific research, comms, and then there are a few like PhD students, placements and postdocs from the arts and humanities. So it's quite an interesting like context to do that research. And it's also really important because the Natural History Museum is obviously a scientific institution. There are between 300 and 400 scientific researchers and just a handful of us arts and humanities. So this has been a key space for conversations about those kind of cultural, historical and ethical dimensions, and for generating new opportunities for engaging with external researchers and also public audiences. The fellowship has been a pretty transformative experience for me in my career. I'd only ever worked with museums and collections from very external university positions, but one of the most valuable aspects of this fellowship has been the understanding that I've gained by actually being based within an institution like this. So how they function, the different priorities and work streams, how research fits into the wider agenda and strategy, and all the different teams, sections, types of expertise that exist within just one organisation. And I've had an opportunity to contribute to various aspects of public programming, some of which was built into the original application, but also taking up lots of new opportunities as they arise. And that's been a massive learning experience about the infrastructures for public engagement in a national museum. And yeah, there's so many different avenues for engagement. And then finally, I just actually wanted to mention the fellowship like cohort itself and the V&A coordination team, not just because they're in this meeting, but because it's been such an integral part of the experience for providing peer support, you know, opportunity to learn from each other's experience, and, you know, being able to talk about the opportunities but also the challenges, and in this really like cross-institutional network. And it's been invaluable for to my experience, and I know for quite a few, well, all the other fellows. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Sophie, thank you so much. And the applause is ricocheting around various rooms in the country and no doubt across the world. That was really great. Thanks. And I think just to reiterate Sophie's point about the cohort, I think from a coordination perspective, that's been the hugely fun part of this role for us as well, has been just seeing those conversations happen across different individuals and different organizations. So thanks so much for giving us your fellow's eye view. We really appreciate it. We're going to head now up to Edinburgh, and thrilled that Lorna Mitchell is here to give us a sense of what the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh's priorities are. So Lorna, over to you.
Thanks, Ollie. It's lovely to be here. I've gone all croaky. That's not a good start, is it? Okay, so basically founded in 1670 as a physic garden, the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh, or as it's known to the locals, the Botanics, may not be on your list of potential hosts for your project, but over the next up to 5 minutes, I'm going to try and convince you that it should be. If I can get my slides to work, here we go. Okay, so just to introduce the organisation, we are a world-class scientific research centre funded by the Scottish Government and self-generated income. We have a very international way of working, and collaboration is very much second nature to us, and that's something we're definitely keen to encourage for this call as well. In addition to that science, we again, education is a key part of what we've done. That's been part of our history from those early days as a physic garden, where we were teaching the potential doctors who would go around the world from Scotland all about plants. We continue that now from primary school to PhD, and again with students joining us from around the world. We are also a free visitor attraction with approximately 1 million visitors every year, which provides a really nice opportunity for impact and engagement. And we obviously have a significant public engagement and events programme, the focus of which for many years has been Inverleith House, which was the first home of the Scottish Gallery of Modern Art, which it was from 1960 to 1984. And since about 1986, it's been hosting contemporary art galleries and exhibitions with Turner Prize-winning artists, including our current Danger Came Smiling exhibition by Linder. So we've got that kind of art and science has been embedded within the organisation from our earliest days. And that work in terms of our science and our education is very much based around our national collections. So these are the collections that we'd be encouraging you to come and think about working with. So I guess the one that people tend to think of when they think of the garden are the living collections, and those are spread over 4 gardens, and those are the flowering and growing plants, ferns and other green things. Fungi, all of those things that you'll find in the 4 sites here in Edinburgh, down on the Scottish borders at Doig, on the west coast at Benmore, and down at Logan. In addition to that, the bit that people are maybe less familiar with is our herbarium, which consists of about 3 million specimens, of which 1 million have now been digitised and are freely available on our website. But the collection dates from 1697 to date, and it tells a story of the scientific activity that was happening, but also the cultural aspects that were impacting that. So whether it was plant nurseries sending out collectors to China, or as I said, doctors who had trained at the RBG sending back specimens, there's lots of hidden histories within the herbarium collection. And then finally, last but not least, is the Library and Archives, which is my particular domain here at RBGE. So we hold Scotland's national collection of botanical and horticultural literature, about 70,000 books dating from the 15th century to date, in addition to around 20,000 original artworks, a huge photographic collection, maps, objects, and lots of other objects that provide really excellent research material for potential projects. And we've been very lucky in that we've been hosting one of the existing research fellows. Dr. Sean Parkinson has been with us exploring our library and herbarium through the means of smell, and really thinking about it in very different ways. And I guess that's the key area we want to look at in terms of our research themes for the current call. So we're looking at the call feeding into our existing Plant Humanities programme, which is an existing research programme. It's part of our science strategy, which is available on our website. It builds on existing strengths across the organisation to expand current interdisciplinary humanities and social sciences, research and creative practice across the organisation. And as I said, we're looking for projects that specifically consider our collections in novel ways around the 4 key themes, which are around the art of plants and gardens, building on our existing art collection and our history of working with artists, building on our history as a physic garden, looking at the relationship between health, medicine and the plant world and the impact that gardens can have on well-being, looking for connections between biodiversity, equity and social inclusion, and also looking at the value of plants, ecosystems and biodiversity, and the cultural context of plants. So lots of potentially very interesting themes, we think, hopefully. And as I said, we are looking to encourage collaborative approaches. As an organisation, we work collaboratively on a day-to-day basis across all of our activities, and that's something we're happy to consider for this call as well. And then finally, that's our website. As I said, my name's Lorna Mitchell, Head of Library Services, and I will be your point of contact. So if there is anything, or if you would like to discuss potential projects, even very speculative ones, we are very happy to have a conversation with you and look at how we might be able to work together. So thank you very much.
Lorna, that's great. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to head slightly south now to Leeds and to Mark from the Royal Armouries. Mark, thrilled you're with us, and over to you.
No, great to be here. Thank you, Ollie, and thank you to the AHRC for putting the money up. Thank you to the V&A for organising this session. So, we are the Royal Armouries. We are the UK's national collection of arms and armour, and we are the oldest public museum in the world, at least according to the Guinness Book of Records. As well as the historic home at the Tower of London, we have a purpose-built museum in Leeds, and we hold the bulk of our artillery collection at a Victorian fort just outside Portsmouth. The core of the collection is really the working arsenal of the English and later the British state, roughly from the pike and shot era to the introduction of the breech loader. This has been augmented over the centuries for public display by trophies, curiosities, and carefully selected exemplars. I'll leave you to pick which of the following images are which. Now, many of these are individual purchases, but the accession of the Ministry of Defence's pattern room collection of 25,000 modern firearms from across the world, nearly all of which work, was a particularly transformative coup. For edged weapon, armour and firearms, we are either the best or one of the best collections in the world. For Asian and African weapons, we are among the best taken as a whole, if not the best for each individual national or regional subset. However, although warfare is a significant part of what we do, our remit also encompasses civilian use for the purposes of hunting, sport, self-defence, and indeed fashion. If you're looking for a summary of the collection that's more granular than I can give here, but less granular than the entire online catalogue, in the IRO priority areas, there's a collections development policy linked. I think you'll find that definitely worth a look. Because arms and armour is a relatively esoteric field, it falls to the museum to do a lot of the intellectual legwork behind it. Nearly all our curators are undertaking some form of research with a view to academic publication. What we're particularly interested in from this opportunity are projects which contextualise arms and armour in broader social, cultural and political trends in a way that the curators can't necessarily do in-house because they have to prioritise the specialist knowledge set that they use on a day-to-day basis. What we hold is much more than just things that either kill people or try and stop people being killed. If only by necessity, most societies have made arms and armour some of the most significant objects that they hold. They make them tokens of fashion and beauty. They give them as gifts from one person and one state to another. They take them from their opponents and display them prominently. They push forward the frontiers of science and technology in order to make them more effective. While violence has become more taboo, arms still hold considerable cultural cachet, both in the West and elsewhere across the world. I remember vividly talking to an NGO worker about how about in the Syrian civil war, the young male fighters would particularly prize weapons that they'd seen in first-person shooters. Thanks to all these dynamics, we're very interested in the potential for a new set of eyes or a new partnership between different types of institutions to produce new insights. Strategically, we're particularly interested in projects dealing with the period during and after the Second World War, which represents something approaching half the collection, and projects which transcend national or regional boundaries. We've previously supervised 2 postdoctoral fellowships, which coincidentally have covered one of these fields each, and both of those, as you'll see, have contributed to what's currently in the museum galleries directly. We took their work and we built it into our interpretation. We're also understandably keen to build impact, whether that's in public or in government. Behind the scenes, we've done a lot of work with the 3D printing of fireworks, the specific details, 3D printing of firearms, the specific details of which are fascinating, but which I'm not really at liberty to disclose. More publicly, we've engaged with the issue of knife crime by hosting the Knife Angel statue and organising a special exhibition with the West Yorkshire Violence Reduction Unit. However, we are also a public museum. This year we're pushing for just under 500,000 visitors and nearly 20,000 formal learning participants at Portsmouth and Leeds. We have 5,000 attend jousts over a bank holiday weekend. We stage daily combat shows and in-character interpretive talks. And it's also a time of change for the museum. We're currently looking at the complete revamp of the main Leeds Museum for the first time since it moved in the mid-1990s. So if your approach is less historical or thematic and more museological, there's still potential to work with us. That's all I have time for, but I'm very happy to speak further. If you'd like to know more, please drop me a line.
Mark, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We're now going to head maybe just across the road, Exhibition Road, to the Science Museum Group, and delighted to welcome Vicki Blood. Vicki, over to you.
Hi. Just come up in a second, hopefully.
Brilliant. Yep, we can see it.
Yeah. Oh, great. I can't actually, weirdly. Okay. Right, okay, there we go. Thanks, Ollie. My name is Vicki Blood. I am one of the research grants managers at the Science Museum Group, and we are sort of across the road, but we are also everywhere. We have 6 sites across the country, so as well as the South Kensington site, beloved of school trips. We also have the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester, the National Science and Media Museum in Bradford, National Railway Museum in York, where I am based, Locomotion in Shildon, and the Science and Innovation Park at Wroughton, which houses the National Collection Centre. And across all our groups, all our sites rather, the Science Museum Group aims to, as well as research our collections, also to increase science capital among our visitors, work with communities, and we aim to make our collections, these national collections, open for all. So to head to our ECR priority themes, we've roughly tethered these to our sites. Looking at the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester, where the general priorities here, so SIM looks at developing archives documenting Manchester's technological shift in the post-industrial era, so especially the 20th century. Manchester is considered the city of ideas, looking at the way that creative industries, sustainability, innovation, and new materials have come to define the city. So in looking at how Manchester as an industrial powerhouse became an international science city, our curators look at not just the textiles industry, which Manchester is of course famous for, but also bicycle manufacture, the railway industry, hydraulic power, and computing. We have a replica of Baby, the first stored program computer, in the collections there. So the strategic area that we're looking at here is global approaches to the textile industry and to textile history, especially with an emphasis on lived experience, the people who worked in the industry, and the worldwide impact of this industry, not just in the UK. At the Science Museum in London, we are our collections are especially famous for the Space Gallery, the Space collections, which is undergoing a significant overhaul and expansion at the moment, but also sustainability. We are looking to strengthen collections in quantum technologies and biomedical innovation, and also collecting archives and documents aligned with emerging STEM fields. But in particular, in thinking about this scheme, we're looking at global approaches to the development of space technology and space history. So especially points that might not kind of readily occur when you're thinking about these this theme. So sustainability, health, innovation, and international coordination as well. At the Railway Museum and Locomotion, which so these are two museums, two sites, but with obviously a shared emphasis, looking at the railways' origin, early operation, the influence of railways on politics, economics, society, culture, Britain's role in international railway networks, and especially viewpoints and narratives from underrepresented groups or individuals. So the People, Pride and Place project that's sort of coming to an end at the moment is a good example of that. And in keeping with this, the area that the railway curators are especially keen to work with people on, railways past, present and future, but especially global export of British railway technology. So mitigating climate crises, policy debates, passenger experience. We're celebrating 200 years of passenger railways, and the working culture of the railway industry. And the National Science and Media Museum, which has vast archives of photography, film, newspapers, TV, sound, game technologies especially, and we're looking as well at at born digital archives and materials. Their strategic area is the impact of sound and image technology, especially the history of image manipulation and extractivism in media technology, which we see a lot as well with kind of current and developing technologies and their impact, not just on the industry, but also on areas where people live, areas where people work. So hopefully that's expanded a little bit on our the themes that met our curator's seal of approval. I've also included on our slides a link to the addresses for me and Kathleen Walker-Meikle, who are the research grant managers, and some a link to some of our recent projects at the group.
Vicki, brilliant. Thank you ever so much indeed for joining us and for sharing that rich range of opportunities for fellows. Now, last but by no means least, we're going to pass over to Sophie Potter from the National Trust. Sophie, hi.
Hi, thanks very much. Let me just right. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm aware that by going last, I am the thing standing between everyone and their lunch, so I will attempt to be as concise as possible. I am the National Grants Manager for Research, and I'm the person who will be coordinating the National Trust's responses to this opportunity. So I'll be the first person that you talk to, but by no means the last if you're interested in working at the National Trust. Just by a brief way of introduction, hopefully you have some idea of what the National Trust does already, but I'd like to assure you it's not just tea and scones, although the scones are most definitely an excellent perk of working here. We have historic houses, landscapes and archaeological sites, all amongst the things that we protect, including 250,000 hectares of land in England, Northern Ireland and Wales, and over 200 mansions and castles, which I will not bore you all by attempting to name them. We also look after over 1 million items within our collections and have both textile and object conservation studios. Our overall organisational strategy is currently People and Nature Thriving, which is a 10-year strategy which looks at our overall charitable aims to be for everyone forever and to support access to nature and heritage for every person in the United Kingdom and beyond. We've been an independent research organisation since 2019, and we have a range of active research programmes that focus on curation, equity and engagement, and environmental sciences. And we've got ongoing collaborations with a wide range of universities and other IROs. And we also have a level of international collaboration, in particular through the International National Trusts organisation, which is a tautology, but we love them anyway. In terms of what we're looking to see from applications to this opportunity, everything can basically be summarised by one key question, which is how do people perceive, value and benefit from heritage? This ties into our new strategy and is a series of very important questions that we're looking to understand more thoroughly. This may include things such as how people's values affect heritage decision making and how we can ensure more equitable and community-focused decisions across the heritage sector. How communities and entities shape and give meaning to the heritage assets and settings that we protect, and how encounters with this heritage affects people's perceptions, behaviours and understandings of themselves and of the wider world. We're really interested in methodologies for sharing a range of perspectives within heritage contexts, and especially want to focus on including those communities which have been historically marginalised and not represented at our places. Finally, but by no means least, we're very interested in enabling access and what is it that people want from heritage places and how can we better meet the needs of those communities which may encounter barriers to access in our sites and more broadly within the heritage sector. One of the key benefits of working with the National Trust is that we are a very large organisation, and so we're in particular interested in opportunities that might seek to work across multiple sites and have a much wider impact. But if your idea is still focused on 1 or 2 sites, do not let that put you off contacting us. If you have any questions, please do get in touch with me at the research email address here, and I will put you in touch with the appropriate person. I will just say the National Trust is currently undergoing a round of organisational restructuring, and so we strongly encourage you to contact us sooner rather than later so that we can make sure the right person is able to contact you in due time. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.
Sophie, thanks so much indeed for that. Really helpful to hear about the NT's priorities. We amazingly, and thank you so much to all of our IRO speakers today, have finished on time, and we do have about 10 minutes now for any questions if anyone would like to ask, either via the chat or do please raise your hands and come off mute, and with any of us on the call would be very happy to answer any queries you may have. Oh, brilliant. Yes, Elizabeth, hi.
Hi there, thanks for all those presentations. I just had a question relating to working in partnership. You mentioned at the start that partner letters of support would be required, and I wasn't sure if that was at EOI stage or how ambitious we should be about listing partners at EOI stage when we haven't necessarily had a lot of time to embed those conversations. Thanks.
Shall I lead us out, and then maybe Andrew or others might be willing to chip in as well. I think, Elizabeth, we're deeply conscious that the IRO community represents sort of one part of the much wider kind of arts and cultural sector. I think what we would suggest is a kind of depth rather than breadth of partnership. So thinking about the ways in which your work could really benefit an additional partner organisation that might have, cognate collection items or different or similar approaches to interpreting or community engagement work, or there might be a kind of geographical focus that makes particular sense, or the collection that you're looking at or the area of your interest might, for various historical reasons, have been divided up across multiple sites. And actually what this work might be is a work of kind of collation after the fact and looking at the ways in which different organizations have interpreted and managed those collections. In terms of the timeline, by submission of the expression of interest phase, I don't think we need letters of support, but we would need a sense of what that relationship might look like. And again, I think emphasis on also, as the fellow, you don't want to be spread too thinly across multiple organizations as well. So I think there's a balance to be struck between sort of the number of potential partners and having a meaningful interaction with an individual or a couple of organizations. Hopefully that's helpful as an initial steer, and I'll go to Andrea next for her view.
Yes. Okay, which Andrea? Ollie.
Oh, sorry. Well, should we go Andrea Bond then? Maybe Andrea Kopp. Sorry, I forgot. I'm surrounded by Andreas. How lovely.
From AHRC's perspective and the practical element of it, the letters of support that we're talking about is actually a requirement for the full proposal stage. But as Ollie as indicated, it would be advisable if that you are interested in having partnerships and collaborations with others to mention this to the host that you're interested in when you have a discussion around your EOI.
Brilliant. Andrea C.
I would just add to that, if you're going to rely on those other partners to a great extent in your proposal, you're probably worth getting in touch with them sooner rather than later, so it doesn't come as a surprise to them if they're tangential or they're you're not going to rely on them so much. Then I would say the level of depth of engagement should drive how much you or who you get in touch with at this stage.
Brilliant. Thanks all. Melanie, thanks for your question in the chat about tattoo collections. Let me take that away. I can't think of anything that immediately comes to mind for within our collections, but I can have a chat with a couple of colleagues and see if you would be willing to send me an email via the link. That would be great, just so we can log your approach. Great. Okay, I've given us long enough to stare in silence at each other, so I feel that perhaps we have exhausted a number of questions on the screen or in the room. Just to thank you all for attending. To sincere thanks to IRO colleagues for sharing just the really exciting opportunities that exist at each of your organisations, and to our colleagues for AHRC for exploring the ways in which the scheme works. I think if you can take one thing away from this meeting is please do reach out to IRO colleagues as early as possible. As Sophie explained, some of us are going through periods of institutional turmoil as well, so we would need just the longer lead in time you can give us, the better. And I think the other thing to emphasize is unlike universities, our research departments in national museums are tiny. They're usually one person or maybe 1.5 or 2 people. So everything, just the longest, the most amount of time you can give us as possible, and we will make sure that your requests are triaged appropriately and that you will get to speak to a subject expert at our respective organisations. So that's it from us. We will ensure that stuff is uploaded afterwards on the Funding Finder website. And a final plea, please do fill in the EDI monitoring form. It's incredibly useful for us as a coordination group to understand the dynamics of our potential cohorts. So thanks again, and thanks to Eloise for marshalling us all in such good order, and have a good rest of your Tuesday. Yeah, brilliant. Bye all.